What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. Fall is in the air. We are purely in the middle of the off-season, and what better time to talk about some Developmental League of Legends. Got a little bit of news to talk about, which is why we're here, and so we're excited to get into all of that. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, actually, I'll be honest with you. It's not been my day. Unfortunately, I found out that my dog is going to be passing away tomorrow, but it's okay. Very good dog. Love Charlie. Shout out. Maybe, I don't know. I can put a picture on screen and it's going to be cute. I don't know, but it's fine. We're surviving. And Grapes, there is a lot of good League of Legends to talk about today, my friend. I guess for the people, as you can see, we're probably just during the off season. Like, we are in like the dead of like, not much happening, but some things are happening, so we'll probably just release episodes as needed until January, would be my guess. That's basically what we did last year as well, Grapes, so I don't think this is too surprising to any of the fans out there. But don't fear not, Salty Runback will still be coming back in 2025, more than likely back and better than ever. We are currently cooking. I don't want to say too much because I don't know if we're overcooking yet, but we are cooking.
We might be overcooking a little bit in certain areas.
We are setting high expectations that we probably won't meet, but that's for neither here nor there, like I said. Maybe some fun things to look forward to. Worst case scenario is we still have weekly uploads, though, so no fear there.
Yeah, the off-season is our time to dream, and so as we try to figure out what 2025 is going to look like, our third year, potentially, running this brand, running this
Season
organization.
3.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like, you know, Riot. I think Riot's planning on making a big announcement about like what League of Legends, like change to League of Legends for their upcoming season.
But unlike those announcements, these ones are actually going to be improvements for the community and very exciting.
Yeah, speaking of, we'll be talking more about that later. But just some headlines for you guys today. Let's kick it off right now. I feel like, Hawk, the biggest reason that there's not a lot of NACL news is because we're still getting trickles of LTA proper news. The tier 1 rosters are getting finalized, and I feel like by the end of that whole cycle, once free agency opens up, I think in this week, we'll start to hopefully get some more news about what is happening in the tier 2 landscape and beyond. But what we did find out is that there's going to be a player that will not be playing in that tier 2 landscape, and that player is, of course, SRTTY, somebody that we have been talking about for such a long time as one of the top prospects playing in the NA scene. Finally is going to get his shot as he reached a verbal agreement with Dignitas, who I don't think have finalized the rest of their roster, but it does mean that SRTTY is finally in a tier 1 spot. Let's go. Okay. This is the question. We've been talking a lot about how hyped we are for this guy, how he totally deserves his tier 1 spot, which is 100% valid. You can look at his track record in tier 2. You look at all the solo queue ranking achievements that he's done, his win with CLOL with St. Louis University. But now that he's actually here, how do you think SRTTY will do in the LTA North? What will his first split in tier 1 look like?
Well, and Graves, can I just start off by saying how exciting this is? Like, this is what everybody wanted for the offseason. Honestly, I don't think anyone had Dig as the SRTTY team. Like, this feels like too logical of a move for Dignitas. Good for them for starting their offseason by picking up SRTTY. It was so exciting when this news broke. With like it kind of happened slowly, right? Because it was like on Tuesday last week, I want to say, was when SRTTY tweeted something kind of cryptic about being excited for LTA. Then on Wednesday, UCI dropped their roster for 2025. Of which SRTTY was not on, and it had already been said that if SRTTY, the only reason he wouldn't be playing for UCI was if he was on an LTA team. And then it was on Friday morning in which we got the news that SRTTY had signed with Dig. I do think it's more than a verbal agreement. He tweeted the contract signed GIF, which leads me to believe that I think we're locked in.
I think that technically you are not allowed to sign a contract until like tomorrow.
Okay.
Or there's a day.
Well, it's gonna happen
coming up.
Seemingly,
it's gonna happen. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was kind of where the good news stopped for the week, which we'll get into later. But yeah, that was awesome. I love that was my favorite thing out of last week. I guess I'll leave it at that because I can go back to the question at hand in a minute, but I just wanted to talk about like how exciting that was because this was the pickup that everybody wanted. And I'm going to be honest, I was genuinely afraid it wouldn't. So this is great.
It's another situation where like things are downsizing a little bit technically with the Latin American team coming in. We were worried that maybe there won't be as many spots available. in the LTA North. It ended up working out that like Licorice, North American top laner, was one of the players that got signed to Lion actually. So it looks like we're still going to have likely like 8 North American top laners, depending on how imports work. Like C9 is going to have an import, but essentially that situation. And so with that spot being opened up, I'm very happy for SRTTY to get this opportunity. Real quick though, what do you think about this UCI roster for 2024? This is like our headline point 5.
Yeah.
Strumpus,
Well, so what?
Xiao
It's
Danny, Gorica, Cerulean, Rosethorn, and then some subs.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think this team is a serious contender. I feel like these are a lot of players that we have seen peak not at UCI. I will say they did also just get a new head coach. I'm forgetting who
It's
it
Joey.
is. Right. It is Joey.
I think
I'm
that's
a big
pretty cool.
I'm a big fan of Joey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Joey did a lot of great work over at Immortals actually. So I do think that's very exciting. I think this team definitely makes top 32. I think they are definitely one of the top 3 contenders in the West Conference, just given the nature of that conference. And I think they are going to be a good CLOL team. I think they can make top 16. But I don't know. I don't think it's too hot of a take for me, Grapes, to say, like, I'm not expecting them to win CLOL.
Hard to tell with just not being able to see all the other rosters, but I think they're similar to last year with, always that same level of upside, but, there's always the downside of just UCI has not always performed to the level that we think that their players of that caliber can do at times. And so I think it'll be a pretty similar situation. But back to the topic at hand in SRTTY. I don't think we have all of the top laners locked in for LTA just yet, but like how in regards to the state of the league, like how much are you expecting him to do? Because I feel like a lot of the time we talk about these prospects and how excited we are for them, but maybe we try to hype them up too much and it comes back to bite at the end of the day.
Which is actually a fear I have voiced on this podcast earlier this year, Grapes, going back to the sniper situation. I very vividly remember saying, like, guys, don't put too much pressure on this kid. And I think all things considered, I don't know if you would agree with this. I think we can say that Sniper, his first year in the LCS was a success. Individually, yes. I think he had his ups and his downs, but I actually think the community was very patient with him, and he went to Worlds. Like, I think we can say that Sniper had a very solid first year, even if he was not breaking heads together, right? So I actually think there's like a pretty good precedent being set for this.
I agree, and I know that even compared to Sniper, SRTTY is a much more polished player.
Yes,
and
I would
potentially
agree.
It was even more exciting in terms of his performance in the NACL than someone like Sniper. And so even though I wouldn't be surprised if there are things like growing pains, SRTTY definitely had things that were exposed at times when he was on FlyQuest this past year, but I think just his work ethic, his skill, that'll eventually carry him to being a very solid top laner in this league. Right now, we know that like Impact, Whippo, Licorice, Thanatos, and Sniper. I think
those are the
5 other top laners. That
I was actually
are in
just
the
about to
league.
get into that.
And so I think he'll be in the mix. I don't know like where exactly we'll line him up, but he's going to be around there somewhere.
I think SRTTY at his worst, I actually think he'll just be like a Summit-esque player in the LCS, but I don't think SRTTY is that I guess like hard-headed as Summit would kind of just totally ignore team, right? But that to me is like
there were worst
what SRTTY will look like, but depending on team synergy, I actually truly believe he could really contend with the likes of Impact and Whippo in terms of his individual ability. I think there will definitely be growing pains. I think SRTTY will have more absolutely fucking terrible games than, say, Sniper did this year, but he will not ever be as invisible as Sniper was. Does that seem like a fair take?
You're going to notice him on the map. He makes his impact known in every game that he plays. And I think that I would have more of your opinion about the whole, lane dominant Summit-esque style unless we saw him like with Slew. And I feel like on St. Louis, like it was a full lane swap meta. Like he was getting, swapped on like basically every game, especially like as we got later and later on into the season. And
he was still playing
able
his
to
picks
provide
though.
a huge
But yeah,
impact.
you're right.
That is true. I mean, he was playing Vayne, he was playing TF and things like that, but it was, to me, like the macro plays that we saw from him, specifically on the Twisted Fate, when he would go for these teleport flanks, he would find really cool angles. I feel like that's the kind of stuff where I look at him and I'm like, that can transfer
Yeah.
into potentially a tier 1.
I think the laning can transfer. I think the macro can transfer. I think I think he's a very smart guy. I think he's a very hardworking guy. Like, I don't know. I'll say he'll be the 5th best top lane in the LCS. If I'm being honest, it's very arbitrary, right? Like, it's just, okay, like, Bwipo and Impact will definitely be better than him off the bat. I think Thanatos is a very good mechanical player, and then what, Licorice is Licorice. Like, I don't know. I think SRTTY could maybe be better than Licorice. I think he could be worse. Like, I honestly, that might depend more on Licorice. I would not be surprised if he's better than Sniper, if I'm being completely honest. I think Sniper's a great player, but I do think I don't think it's unfair to say, like, I don't think he was the bombshell promotion outside of his brand, as like more so looking at his gameplay. So that's kind of where I'm at on SRTTY, but we can probably
Any thoughts on the rumor or the thing that Sheep just posted today, that FlyQuest was considering promoting SRTTY and using him as a 6th man? I'm personally very glad that did not happen.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
That happened with Tenacity, with the 100 Thieves, and it did not work out.
I'm glad that didn't happen as well for SRTTY's sake. I feel like being a 6th man is not a good way to start a career, to be honest. It worked very well for Blabber, though, so that's actually like, but it's tough. Yeah, there was all that shit about, like, Bwipo could have been coaching or whatever. I think this is best for both teams. Like, this gives SRTTY his chance to earn his spot in the LCS. It means FlyQuest is running back their roster that just impressed the world. Like, this seems to make the most sense.
Yeah, and hopefully this is not the last promotion into the LTA North, although we did see Winsome go to the South Conference with Loud. Maybe there's a time next week or in the future where we like go through all the changes, ups and downs. But for now, this is the big one that we wanted to focus on. So
yeah,
maybe some more LTA news in the future, hopefully for some of our prospects. But let's move on to the collegiate landscape a little bit as we go to headline 2. It was announced last week that the CLOL format will be receiving a couple of changes. Most notably is that the group stage will now be pure Swiss instead of a round robin in groups, as well as double elimination both in the conference playoffs as well as in the national championship bracket. Hawk, I'll let you kind of further explain all of the nitty gritty about these rules, but once we kind of break everything down for you guys, what we're going to do is pick one good part about the format that we like and one bad part that we dislike.
So, important thing to note is that the CLOL championship is going to look pretty similar to what it did last year, except it's double elim from the start now, right? Not just top 8.
So it's not just top 8.
Yeah.
And then also another thing that happens is that the bottom 16 goes into the lower bracket automatically, where the top 16 go in the upper bracket. So if you're in the top 16, you get double elim all the way. If you're in the bottom 16, it's single elimination all the way.
Right. But the format is going to be like fairly similar to what it looked like last year. And the important thing is too, the CLOL championship is going to happen before the end of the school year. I think that's a huge change. That makes so much sense. I wonder if the LAN specifically will maybe still be after the school year ends to make it easier for people to travel. I actually don't know. But I think this is a huge change that makes a ton of sense. And then you also have 12 weeks of conference play. Partner conferences are, still going to be doing their thing. But then for our main affiliated conferences, North, South, East, and West, you have 5-week Swiss into 7-week playoffs. So taking a lot of the value, or not the value, like the time out of the regular season group stage and just sort of making it like quick placements and then a double elimination playoffs. Grapes, I'm just going to get it started. I think this is the huge rose. Conference play was so boring, honestly, until like top 8 of the playoffs. Like even for us, we're super into collegiate, but like, I don't think it's that unfair to say we didn't really care about most of the games until like top 8 of playoffs because most of them didn't matter too much. And obviously we want to highlight the up and coming schools that earned their spot and say like top 16 in regional playoffs. Like that's great. We still did and liked to highlight those schools, but I do think getting more marquee matchups earlier on in the season not only makes it better from a content perspective, which obviously we're thinking about, but this is so much better for the teams and players. Like we have gotten firsthand accounts from multiple CLOL teams and players that like the regular season, like they don't give a fuck about anything until their conference finals or hell, even like top 16 of CLOL if you're Maryville, right? Like I think this is really big. And so I'm very excited for the top echelon of the league that this is happening. But then also even the middle teams, I think, are still going to find value from this.
Yeah, I feel like the middle teams found value from the group stage as a whole, because of course it was a matter between getting fourth place or fifth place in the group. That was the stuff that really mattered for those teams specifically.
Right.
I like the change to Swiss because of the reasons that you said, and then also
like it's not worse for mid-tier teams. It's only just better for top-tier teams.
Exactly. It's better for everybody involved. And the situations with like finishing, as you mentioned, second versus third in your group by dropping one best of three of the other doesn't really matter too much. And so I think that is why this could be better. Also reduced from 5 weeks to 5 weeks from 7 weeks, which means you get more time in the conference playoffs, which I think is the more exciting part, especially if it's a double elimination and the top X amount of seeds receive automatic bids.
With double elim too, and as well as the Swiss, it's just fewer weeks where top tier teams are like completely clapping low tier teams, you know?
Yeah, and people might remember back in 2020, 2021 even, I think, that Swiss was how the group stage used to work, and it posed some problems because there was the pick Tristana and Ziggs every single game and just run it down mid because game time ended up being a big factor in terms of tiebreakers. However, I don't think that's going to be as
They're
much
capping
an
it at
issue
32
this
teams
time.
for each regional conference, which a 5-team
Exactly.
Swiss perfect, like it's exactly the same as OQs. So
It's
just
same
take
as
that
OQs,
format,
except
and
it's best of threes, not best of ones.
Which is
and
better.
It goes over 5
Which is
weeks.
better.
Yes. And yeah, the reason that Swiss was all messed up was because, as you said,
there was like 128 teams.
There was too many teams.
Yeah.
And so I think this marries the good parts of the recent format as well as the Swiss format before, because at the end of the Swiss formats of whatever, you were getting ISU versus SLU in a best of 3 to determine seeding for conference playoffs and things like that. But now you get less of the speed running, more of the competitive play. I think that the regular season will be a very fun thing to watch, as well as all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I have 2 things that can be considered bad things, unless you had something to add.
No, go ahead.
Okay. The first bad thing is that this is just more of a personal opinion, but we are straying further and further from what a traditional collegiate sports regular season or just a collegiate sports season looks like, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because obviously there are a lot of issues that are going on with collegiate sports right now. But just when I think about college basketball, college football, a lot of games that matter, but are there are a lot of stomps in the regular season and things like that as you whittle things down to the playoffs.
It's very college football. I feel like that's the best comparison, where it's there's just a lot of stuff happening, but no one cares until the natty. You know what I mean?
Which I feel like is exciting for a lot of people, but because CLOL specifically is not you go to the stadium and watch your team play every week, that's less of a necessity. And so the being similar to traditional sports is not necessarily a bad thing at all. Okay, I actually have 2 more bad.
Okay,
things. The next bad thing is that I wish that there was a way to have some more cross-conference play before the national championships. I feel like seeing matchups like that before we get to the nationals would be pretty fun, and I feel like there might have been
some sort of non-conference play,
a way to include some non-conference play, especially for teams to potentially boost their resumes before the national championship if there's a committee that
is fully
them.
committee seated this year.
Yeah, so I feel like that could be
for
helpful.
Again.
Plus, add a lot of entertainment value for some of these people. So, I think that could be a fun introduction later on. Maybe this is a thing that these schools could just start staging exhibitions against each other for content, plus to prove to seeding committees. Maybe that's a thing that happens in the future. I feel like that's what a lot of non-conference games in college sports are now. I talked for too long, so I'm gonna let you kind of give some of your reactions or one of your negative points.
I think my main thorn, because I'm gonna be honest, I do think a lot of your thorns are oh, they could have done more, and I think I'm there with you. I think out of all of the changes that have happened, I'm pretty down with all of it. I don't think any of it's bad. My one thing is that it just still feels like CLOL is a hand half in the cookie jar kind of thing. Riot is still having it exist as its own very separate thing, but they're not willing to either completely cut bait and make it a different product, or totally take control and make it something good. Because, like, you know, right now we still have like the main conferences, but then also the partner conferences that are all sort of doing their own thing, and they're like a worse version of mid majors from a traditional
It's what
collegiate
happens in
sports
traditional
setting.
sports too, though.
But it's different though, because they feel very separate. I don't know. And it's like, I feel like there's no unifying collegiate experience right now that I would love if there was.
Like,
So I guess that's kind of my
separated
thorn.
by conference is what you're saying.
What's up?
You're saying because everything is separated by conference, it doesn't feel like a unified CLOL.
I don't mind
experience
having
internationally.
different conferences. But there's no, and this is gonna be a really hot take because the NCAA is really bad in many ways. But there's no NCAA.
Well,
Like
it is. It's
GG
RCA.
Tech is
That's-
not an NCAA, right? And
I mean, technically it is, but
But
in
they're
terms
not.
of,
They're
like,
not though. Really, like they're not as hands-on as NCAA is. And again, there's a lot of reasons why that's a good thing, because the NCAA is terrible, and I'm not going to go into that. But like, I feel like there needs to be a more. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of like different things happening in collegiate at the same time, I suppose.
Partner conferences are a unique situation because they give Riot money, and like they basically, you know, you pay in to be a part of this partner conference to get that automatic bid
I think
into
it
the national
makes sense that they
championship.
exist for sure, but
Yeah, cross region play could fix some of that. That's all I'm gonna say. Cross conference. Let's make it happen in the future. My other thorn, I don't know if you wanted to bring it up, but the prize pool is getting slashed pretty heavily. From
yeah.
$190,000 to $35,000.
This is true.
Which I think is kind of a legacy. Don't like a legacy thing that from Riot over these past couple of years, but the prize pools continue to get smaller and smaller. Obviously not great, ideal, but that's just where things are right now.
I forgot about that.
And also,
yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
and also just no news of a broadcast just yet, and so or where the LAN will be or how many teams it'll be. So a lot of the problems that we had last year, a lot of them still exist. In terms of format, that's not really connected, but just in terms of collegiate news, another thing to bring up.
Yeah. So that's collegiate. You're going to hear a lot more about collegiate from us, of course, coming up soon. Also, I'm hoping that the broadcasting of the CLO Fall Warm-Up Finals may be showing that there is some commitment to a broadcast still on GG Tech's
They
end.
did. I did warm up finals last year. So.
Yeah. And I just did it with Yanni this past weekend. So
not necessarily a guarantee is what I'm going to say.
Right. Well, that's true. But I don't know. We'll see. You're going to hear a lot more about CLO from us in the future, though. We can keep it moving. Grapes is probably going to be a little bit of a shorter headline. SIDO has announced their players that are going to be doing the boot camp in Los Angeles, with then an opportunity to boot camp in Korea. This is a really, really big deal. I know a lot of players very excited about it. I believe it's 15 players that are coming out to LA.
So it's 10.
10. Sorry. If and Grapes, for me, can you read out those 10 names?
Yes. So in the top lane, we have Hoarder and Zamudo. In the jungle, we have Will and Kryra. In the mid lane, we have Darkwings and Samakin. At AD carry, we have both Sushi and Mobility. And then at support, we have Mixture and Cryogen, who was the sub on FlyQuest for the majority of this year. So I feel like we got a good mix, actually, of qualifiers and NACL talent, which I think is cool.
And I think for anyone that was actually watching the Combine, this is not too surprising. Hoarder was actually the only player out of this bunch that I didn't get to see any of his games in the Combine, so I can't really speak too much there. But, like, I think this was very well expected and very well deserved to all these players. I actually don't have too much to say about this, more so than I just kind of wanted to draw attention to the fact that it happened at all. I'm very excited to see these players. Hey, if you're one of the players in the SIDO Combine, you're coming out to boot camp in Los Angeles, maybe we could chat sometime, or just like grab food and hang out. But let me know. But regardless, I think this is a very cool opportunity. We got to talk all with Parth about this last episode, what came out 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Yeah, congratulations to these players. I think it's all very deserved, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, I think the cool thing is that there are a lot of players that we are personally really high on.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned people like Kryra, Sushi, even Cryogen was somebody who really impressed me during the Combine, and Mixture as well.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is there were other players that we were super high on that didn't get invited. People like Scary Jerry and Zyko, for instance, bot lane for Dragonsteel. And so comparing like who got in, and also knowing that SIDO is doing a lot more like analytics to and also work behind the scenes to figure out what traits are in these players, like it is a really interesting thing. I'd love to hear more about like the methodology
Yeah.
as the combine kind of progresses and like what they are seeing out of these players, and hopefully this becomes a thing where like we get to talk about them as like, oh, like, hey, here's Will. He was a SIDO graduate last year. Like, and hopefully this means that they're able to learn a lot and then take all the things that they learned from this boot camp situation and bring it back to them for this upcoming year.
Yeah. No, I think this is great. I would assume the methodology about the players and stuff like that. Something tells me this will all come out because, of course, SIDO is a research company at the end of the day. We talked all about that with Parth. Watch our last episode. So, yeah, I would be really curious to know, why specifically these players were picked, other than that they're great at League of Legends. But I'm very excited to see what they do. I'm also, I'm interested to see, like, how this gets talked about, say, like, a year from now, right? Like, does this influence these 10 players' careers? Is there valuable research that comes out of this? I'm sure there will be in some capacity, right? But I'm just really curious to see kind of what the future looks like from this.
Definitely. Before we wrap up the show, we're going to expand to the more global scale a little bit to talk about some other things that are happening in the esports world and their connection potentially to the NACL and NA developmental as a whole, as we can move on to our fourth headline, where it was announced, unfortunately, that the LPL, or actually excitedly, what am I talking about?
Yeah!
That the LPL
Good
is moving
news!
to a co-streaming only model, baby. Now, if you're a fan of the show, you might actually find these words to be rather familiar. So things like, we are excited to bring the community together and to have players connect more directly to the space, and to have co-streamers bring a new spin on the environment. Because it's a very similar word, a very similar write-up to actually what was said about CLOL about 6.5 months ago, which resulted into us taking some of that action into our own hands. But now that this is the second time that this has happened, I'm curious of Hawk, what you think of what this means potentially for the future of esports broadcasting as a whole, and more specifically just the NACL, which has had a pretty robust broadcast itself.
Yeah, and Grapes, I'm sure you wanted to talk about this too, but I was very adamant that this needed to be a headline in this episode because I have thoughts and I'm going to share them. Hawk rant incoming. This was one of the most insane Riot announcements I've maybe ever seen in my life. Unbelievable. For many reasons. One, first of all, I think as far as the LPL broadcast getting removed, this is just terrible. Like, this has been a broadcast that has undergone so much turmoil. I don't know why the LPL product, for whatever reason, has not done as well with Western audiences over the years. Time zones probably have something to do with it, but it's just sort of always been swept under the rug. Go ahead.
It's time zones, and also, as noted here, Riot doesn't put any resources into
Well,
it.
yeah.
It's all
and
started by
why.
like Atlas and Pastry Time just like streaming out of their basements and
it started as a total like co-stream like GarageBand thing, and then it got started up. I mean, honestly, it has a very similar life trajectory to what CBLOL had, except much over a much longer period of time. And now that's gone. I mean, I know that just a couple months ago, I was actually recommended to be a part of a 2025 LPL broadcast should it have existed. So the fact that like this rug has been pulled out is just simply like insane to me, that one of the major tier 1 regions is not going to have a broadcast. Like, look, it's one thing when they said, all right, we're not going to do the CBLOL broadcast anymore. Like, fine, sure.
It's a minor region.
Right. But I thought it was absolutely crazy that LPL got cut. 2, I am very worried about the future of our beloved NACL broadcast. The possibility of an LTS, what is it? LTA South?
LTA South.
LTA South broadcast in English. Because if LPL is getting cut, like, are these products going to exist? Then that begs the question, is all of this LTA stuff downsizing in disguise? I've been saying this for months. Like, Grapes, you want to interject? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but like in I think last week's episode of like Hotline League, Mark Z was on, and somebody had a take on this, and I think Mark Z kind of soft announced that it's going to be like a pretty similar thing for LT
Right.
South. So
And
it's going to be mostly co-streams. I don't think there's going to be an official broadcast until we get to like the global championships in English.
and this brings me to like my main point, which is like, and I think there's a Cubby tweet maybe we could put up on the screen that sums up actually my opinions very well. I pretty much agree with everything Cubby said there, where I get that broadcasts cost money and stuff like that, and I can sort of like I can understand Riot's position, but there are two reasons why this is an absolutely stupid decision and like a travesty the way it's gone down. One is that Riot completely pioneered the esports broadcasting space, and I understand that, you know, entertainment media is always going to go through evolution. You can't do the same thing for 100 years or it's going to die. I mean, we're seeing that with Major League Baseball, right? But it's also trying to make a comeback, right? But regardless, however,
Took a shot at baseball right there. That was crazy.
I mean, it's true, but content needs to evolve. But with that being said, I don't think you can completely abandon what made you stand out in the first place like this. Like, that's such an insane thing to do, especially at the expense of so many hardworking people that are just losing their jobs off of this. Like I, for the last few days, have been completely calling into question whether or not I'll actually ever cast again. Grapes, we have a lot of big plans for what we're doing with Salty Runback in 25. Again, we talked about it in the intro a little bit. We're cooking. We don't know if we're overcooking, but like, am I ever going to just cast a League of Legends match again? I don't know, because
Casting's
I can't
not part of all of the solutions and the things that we're hopefully working on
Right.
necessarily, right? Like,
And
that's
I
not
can't-
a sustainable thing to do.
Yeah.
At this point.
And it leads me into my second question, which is like, not only are we abandoning the product that made League Esports so big in the first place, but people like us can't afford to do this for free. Because what this whole co-stream only model really is it's taking advantage of people that work really hard, whether it's people like Cadril that can afford to do it, and Cadril's probably happy to do it, you know what I mean? It's part of his brand, and that's great. But co-streaming implies the existence of another broadcast. It is something to accompany a product that is there, right?
Yeah.
And so saying you're bringing the fans closer, or, you know, like it's better for the community in this way, all complete bullshit. It is one thing to say, we are making this decision, it is final, here's what's happening, and then the community can take it as they will and get mad about it. It is another thing to completely, blow smoke up my ass when people are like, it's literally just like calling into question the future of people's jobs, products, like disguising shit as a Christmas present is insane to me. Yeah. That is the part that gets me so much. And
I mean,
so
that's what they do at this point. I feel like it kind of is what it is.
It's just absolutely crazy to me, man, because I guess to finish my point about co-streaming is it's either like you're going to have people like Cadril that do it and they're going to do a good job and that's great, but then you're going to have people like us that are wondering what's next. And that is pretty unacceptable, because that was a situation, especially for a smaller product. You know, LPL is one thing. CLOL is another. We picked up the pieces once, and we were willing to do that once. But what about
Especially
NACL? What about what happens when it's NACL this year? What happens when there's no official broadcast and all of us are wondering what we're gonna do? We have some ideas, but none of them, for me, are going to involve working for free. Like, to me, this was one of the worst announcements that has come out in years. It was so bad, because I have never been on the League Esports' dying train, but I actually think this partially put me on it.
I'm gonna come out right now and say, you know, I did not watch a ton of LPL over these last couple of years. It's just it took a lower priority to me. There was, you know, it's late. It's like starts at 4 a.m. for me. There's other stuff that we've been working on. You know, LCK is another league that I follow a decent amount. So I'm not one to say like I was watching every single LCK game or anything like that. But the idea of you know, giving maybe a little bit selfishly, giving broadcast talent that avenue to potentially work on their craft, work in a tier 1 space. You know, I know this has been brought up time and time again, but so many of the awesome casters and the awesome broadcast talent that are on the international stage now got their start in the LPL. And so seeing that go away, seeing that opportunity go away, obviously sucks. But on the other side, in terms of just, creating fandom and things like that, this takes away I feel like this takes away the pure just like LPL fan, and now it just is, K-Drill fans who are going to watch the LPL, or Dom fans that are going to watch the LPL, which is fine. But I think also those co-streamers have gone out and said that this change is not for the better. It's going to maybe help them a little bit in the short term, but will hurt everybody in the long term. And also just, co-streams are like, they're fun to watch, and at least in my opinion, because you get a broadcast behind it as well, and there's a lot of work going into that product.
I think it's important
that the co-streamer
to understand.
can work on top of it, and it's that going away and just being like a clean feed of the match. That's just gonna be so much of a worse. That's gonna be such a worse experience overall.
I think it's important to understand that this change is not happening because co-streams are a better product, but because they are a more affordable one.
And co-streams existed in years past, like with an official broadcast, and I think that is the way that they should be run. I feel like, opening up more of a viewership pool for your official broadcast through these co-streams is the way that it should be done, not necessarily the other way around. And in terms of what this means moving forward, I'm not too sure. I hope that it things can eventually get righted, and the ship can get righted. I hope that there are initiatives put into place to make sure that we still are following this league, because it would be bad for the English broadcast of international tournaments to just have people know nothing about the LPL when they come to international tournaments. And so that's my stand on this.
I think, to sum up my thoughts, to me, this decision is Riot saying that they do not believe there is value in the traditional esports broadcast right now. Whether or not that's true, I think is extremely up for debate. But that is what Riot is saying. Because to me, this is I think they would get rid of the LCS broadcast if they could. They just couldn't because of what the audience is, right? There's the least audience for the LPL, so they can get away with it. And that is a very concerning trend for me. And yeah, this change is not happening because it's for the better for anyone except for Riot, and I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, the thing is Riot, I feel like, is in a position where they're a rich company. Arcane is coming out right now. They could put a little bit of money, they could lose a little bit in esports to make it a better product in the long run, I feel like. But they're just not willing to do that. And so that's what's
to
happening.
me, this is saying that Riot does not believe that an esports broadcast is a worthwhile loss leader, which is very scary.
Yeah, or it just works as a loss leader the way that it is, and with as little resources as possible, they want to minimize that loss, when in reality maybe they should be, putting a little bit more into it now so it can result into more later. So that's kind of the state of where things at. It sucks to not be in control of that, but all we have to do is kind of accept what is given to us and move on from there. Let's move on to our next headline, which maybe is a little bit more fun as we expand or take our flight over to Europe.
There is still things to look forward to, even if all of our careers may be over.
Yeah, let's hope that's not the case. Let's talk about Los Ratones. Speaking of co-streamers, K-Drill announced that there's going to be a team that he has founded called Los Ratones that'll be playing in, I believe it's the NLC, which is the Scandinavian/British, ERL. Their roster is going to consist of the Baus FFS, Velia, who I think is like a top-ranked prospect, which is pretty cool, Nemesis, Crowny, and Reckless. So a lot of big streamers, a lot of big personalities, all going to be backed by K-Drill. And I guess the question is a situation like this possible in North America? And I guess if it is, let's start building. Let's start pitching to some influencers.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I will dominate if you're watching the show. I want to see it. The Dommy Mommy is coming soon to Tier 2. Oh.
Crazy.
Dude, I'm realizing you totally have Cat Evolved as the mid laner on this team. Because you have to remember, a lot of these players have comp experience in the past, right? Cat Evolved, 2020 TSM Academy, or 2021, one of the two. 2019.
You're actually so right on that. Holy cow.
Dude, Cat Evolved mid. You get double lift or sneaky. You double lift sneaky bottom lane with sneaky supporting double lift. It's just like Reckless and Crowny.
I'm down for that if they are.
Dude, I'm cooking.
Yeah. And then I feel like someone like Spica fits on that team. He's content. He's been in.
Isn't he going to
He's
be
been
playing
like
in
on
LCS this
TSM.
year, though?
I mean, I don't know. There's a chance
Probably.
he's not.
You're right. It's possible.
I think the big thing though is that now we're kind of like grasping at straws for people and for influencers. I think the way Europe is currently set up, it makes this situation possible. Both in the fact that the NLC is like a league that is kind of independent on its own and has their own fans and has people that like really do follow them and then they do get a lot of viewership. You know, if-
Although I've
the
heard a lot
NACL
of
has
people
their own
saying
fan
that
base
it's
too.
not optimal for them to be playing in the NLC, but they have to because of residency.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think in general, though, like EU Masters, ERLs have had a lot of popularity around them that haven't specifically been connected to the LEC.
Yes, it's easier
Um,
to create an entertainment product out of the EU fan base below Tier
Yes.
1 esports than it is.
Yes,
in
there's
North
regional
America.
identity. There's
Yeah.
other stuff like that.
I agree with that.
And then you also have somebody who's literally nominated for Streamer of the Year at the Streamer Awards as like the head of this. We don't necessarily, I love Double Lift. I love I Will Dominate. I love all those guys, but they are not necessarily as large as Cadril has been, and that's no shade to them. It's literally because Cadril had 300,000 CCV at World Finals last year. So that's kind of a very different landscape. I
the
do
heck?
hope that in general, as we look towards news about the NACL, that there are big organizations that form like big super teams and stuff like that with big influence, because I think the appeal of being an NA right now compared to EU is the chance that potentially promoting into tier 2.
I think it can be done in North America even without like the regional fan bases and stuff, because if I'm being honest, regional fan bases are great for teams like KC, for example, when they existed in the EU Master scene. Obviously, they're still in LEC, but I don't think that's what Cadril's feeding off of, right? He's going to be feeding off of the his own popularity, and Los Ratones, I should say, will be feeding off of the Cadril fan base, right? Now, I do agree. I think that the system of that Europe has makes it easier to create like a successful entertainment product because you're not beholden to, like all of the same systems and stuff in North America. But I don't know. I still think it's completely possible because of the I don't think you have to be as popular as Cadril to make this kind of thing potentially work. I do think, though, it becomes more important to actually be good because of the prospect of promotion. I think that's the really important thing that you're kind of chasing after.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a world where a team just like picks up a bunch of vets and former LCS players and makes it a thing. But we'll see. Hopefully, we get some news about that soon, because
Yeah.
I would love to talk more. But I'm actually excited to watch these guys. I was a big Baus fan like a few years ago. When he
Who
started
is
going
the
viral,
Baus
so.
equivalent? I guess it's just Cat Evolved, isn't it? Like, or is
He's-
there a
he's the
better
Baus.
Baus equivalent?
No. He's he's bigger influencer.
Is there
than
someone
Cat
that's
Evolved necessarily.
never played competitive League of Legends that would be really funny to see on this North American team?
Sanchovies? We already saw that in NACLQ though. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the. I don't know. I don't know how well.
we want to see that again. I don't think we want to see that again.
All right, let's move on to our last headline here. Our sixth headline, as we expanded, because there was another fun thing to talk about it before we wrap up the show.
Wait, who's that like Ivern main? Like Jamaican
Jamaican Banana.
Jamaican Banana. That's
I mean, he only plays Ivern though. Like,
and Baus only
I guess-
plays Scion, bro.
He's expanded his pool a little bit. He's got the Quinn. He's got the Gragas. He's got some other picks. Sion kind of sucks right now, so I think that's why he's transitioned over to other champions more.
Anyway, last headline.
Regardless,
Let's move on.
last headline here, as a big moment in just pop culture history, I guess, as was the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight that happened the other day. Streaming issues aside, brings up the age-old important question, Hawk. If there was a celebrity boxing match for NACL, who's in there? Who's your main card? Who's your main ticket?
Okay, I know he's technically LCS now, but I feel like SRTTY would be a really good candidate for NACL celebrity boxing. Like, he goes to the gym. He's a very in shape dude. It is funny. SRTTY's actually one of the nicest people I've ever met. I can't imagine him mad enough to want to box somebody, but I feel like he could like get into it. You know what I mean? That's like my pick. If I need someone in my corner, it's SRTTY. That's my
I'm debating if we like are trying to pick like the most athletic people or like people that are just gonna beef with each other.
Or we just have like Aaron and Shogo box.
that would be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Shogo versus mobility. That's
Shogo mobility is really good, dude. Who else has beef? Like we bring back Marty and we have him. Who took everything from him? Was it Dark Wings or was it somebody else? Sword.
Yeah, I think
Marty and Sword.
I don't think those guys don't have beef. Those guys.
Marty would be a really good pick though.
Yeah, he would take it seriously. Like he would get into it for like 4 months. Yeah, no. 100%.
He would be like, you know, like chess boxing.
Yeah, definitely.
For him, it would be like having Gotham chess box, where he's not someone that should ever be in a boxing ring, but man, it would be really funny to see.
Here's the thing. Here's what we do. New event, Salty Runback. League of Legends boxing, where you do a 1v1 on Howling Abyss, and then you box it out at the end.
Holy shit!
You know Ludwig's chess boxing, where they had the ring of they had like the chessboard like descend from the skies as it made its way down to the ring.
Oh my god, dude! League boxing would be so good. Yo,
let us know in the comments who you want to see in this event, because we definitely don't have the facilities to make that happen. Who can I pitch this
to make it happen? Ludwig. Ludwig's been playing League now.
He's been playing a lot of League. Actually, you're right.
Grapes, I have our newest cook.
We have a new business idea.
Salty, dude, we got to start doing like Salty Runback live events.
Yeah, we don't have any money. That's the problem. Like we would go broke very instantly.
This is true. We got to find someone with money.
We don't have the revenue stream.
Who's the headlining deal that gives us big money?
We don't have the revenue stream of just pumping out a "you laugh, you lose" video and making 3 million, getting 3 million YouTube views on it. So
is that what Ludwig does?
That's definitely one of his main revenue farms. Or just
God. And haven't you seen all that bullshit where like KSI is saying that streaming is easier than working 9 to 5? Fuck you.
That's gonna do it.
I know what's our headliner. We need a headliner. We need a headliner.
As we wrap up the show.
We need a headliner. Who's our boxing match, Grapes? We need to figure this out. Is it Aaron and Shogo? Is that our boxing match?
It's Shogo mobility.
Shogo mobility. All right.
I know that they started like being nice to each other a little bit on Twitter, because they were talking about being both sad about how ADC just sucks right now with the new patch and things like that, which I don't know is necessarily true. I don't really follow too much, especially during the offseason.
Boo hoo. ADC tears.
I feel like it's a typical ADC thing to do. Yeah. That's our headliner. We'll get that going. But that's gonna do it for this episode. I feel like we covered a lot. It's gonna be like a 45-minute one.
We ended up talking for 52 minutes, Grapes. Yeah, it's pretty good length. But I think we had a lot of good conversations. Some unintelligible rants in there. Actually a lot of positive news though that are still having us looking forward to 2025. If you're a fan of Salty Runback, again, I really need to stop getting people's hopes up and saying this, but like you should be looking forward to 2025. We are going to do everything in our power to make this the greatest year yet, for both ourselves and the space. I think that's it. Make sure you follow us all on social media at Salty Runback Pod, at Hawkcasts, at Speedy Grapes. If you know anyone that works in brand partnerships, send them our way. Or you can take everything here we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a good night.